just making sure I have this set up right. If you guys could drop a comment and say hi, just so I know the comments are coming through, that way I can answer questions as they come up. But today we're gonna just talk about really basic patina stuff. This question came up in another live that I did recently. And I mentioned that I would answer that question. So we're just going to talk, the question specifically was how to get like a dark patina on a surface that you've roller printed and then take the patina off the surface so that you can have contrast between like the bright and the dark. And so that's what we're going to do today. Hi, Pat. Thanks for saying hi. So let me put my camera in front of my sink. First, I'm going to show you guys a few samples, and then I'll show you different ways to patina like silver and copper and how I approach the patina process just to get a really nice buildup of a dark color. So let me flip my camera around here. Okay, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to just drop them in the comments. Sorry. Get my camera situated here. Okay, so I grabbed just a couple of samples of things to show you before we get started. These 3 pieces were all done with liver of sulfur. They're all copper. Let me adjust my light a little bit here. Okay. This is a rolling mill pattern plate, one of our plates. And then this is a really subtle pattern done with a rolling mill. It's a leaf. It's super subtle. But how you handle the patina and, you know, the surface, you can still get a lot of contrast between the texture and the surface. And then this is a hammer texture, so much deeper. And you can see I got really, really dark darks. So one thing that you want to think about when approaching patinas is what a patina is. So a patina, a true patina, is a chemical reaction happening with the surface of the metal. What's the Statue of Liberty made out of? It's made out of copper. But it doesn't look like bright copper, right? It looks more like this. And the reason for that is because the copper is having a chemical reaction with its environment. And it's reacting to the humidity, the water, and the salt in the ocean. So we get this like blue-green patina on the copper. So a true patina is this chemical reaction that's happening with the surface. And in order for that patina to really like take hold and be very visible, and I don't want to say permanent because a patina is something that's always going to continue changing. It's never going to be permanent because it is a chemical reaction and it's susceptible to its environment. So anyway, we'll get back to that. But the one way that you can help get a really great patina is to give your metal some texture. So you can see on this piece that's very heavily textured, my patina is darker. I still get a great patina on this piece, but the texture isn't as dark. And that's because giving your metal some texture, some tooth, it gives the patina areas to really kind of hold on to, if you want to think about it that way. So patinas don't like surfaces that are highly polished. This is a hammer textured piece. And if I were to try to patina this, it would work, but it wouldn't work as well as if I were to scuff this surface up first with something like a Scotch-Brite pad or even a brass brush. And after I finish this live, I'll link to the type of brass brush I like to use because this is like basically the most important part, I think, of this process is the brass brush. But anyway, you're giving your surface some tooth for the patina to kind of latch onto. So you want to think about that. So even when I have roller printed metal with any of our pattern plates, I will go in and I will clean Cleanliness is really important too, because anything like skin oils or any sort of residue on the metal can also affect your patina application. So you always want to make sure you're starting with very clean metal. So I scrub just with my brass brush and Dawn dish soap. You can use any sort of like degreasing soap. And then I'm going to really burnish and brush this surface with the brass brush. And I'm just building up a tiny thin layer of texture, really like microscopic texture on my metal. And then after I've cleaned my metal, I'm gonna handle it from the edges. Better yet, wear gloves. So I'm actually gonna slide my gloves on right now because I like to wear gloves when I patina. And then dry your metal off. This might seem pointless since you're gonna get it wet again, but the minerals in your water can actually react with your patina, and that can cause spotting and like weird discolorations as well. Especially if you're in a place like I am with really, really, really hard water. We have a lot of minerals in our water. Okay, so I like to wear these clear like vinyl gloves when I'm doing patinas. So, important things we've mentioned so far. Give your metal a little bit of texture. And I'm not just talking about the rolling mill texture. I'm talking about using something like a Scotch-Brite or a brass brush to give your metal a little bit of tooth for the patina to latch onto. And then also make sure that your metal is very, very clean. That will help you when you go to patina. Okay, so we're gonna start with liver of sulfur. So I have just a clean glass dish here. Your local Goodwill or thrift store is a great place to buy dishes for your studio. You never want to be mixing studio dishes with dishes that you're going to cook in ever again, so keep your food dishes separate. And then I could run my tap. I like to start with hot water for liver of sulfur, but it takes my sink out in my studio forever to get hot, so I have an electric tea kettle over here I'm going to grab really quick. All right, so this has hot water in it. I'm just gonna put some hot water in my little dish. And you don't need a ton, but I do recommend being able to fully submerge whatever piece you're going to patina. So, let's see. I wanna show you this one first. This needs to be cleaned, so I'm gonna do that really quick. This is a feather that was roller printed. I don't know if you can see how subtle that is. It's really subtle, like as subtle as it gets. So this will be even more subtle than like your pattern plate textures. And we'll do a patina on this. Just need to clean it up a little bit first. So I'm doing two things here. I'm giving it a little bit of surface texture, and I'm scrubbing clean at the same time. All right, let me rinse that off. Okay, and then I have my hot water here that I'm ready to add my liver of sulfur to. I will show you both ways. You can buy liver of sulfur in a gel form or in like a granular form. My personal preference is the granular form, but I know a lot of people really like the gel form, so we'll start with that. You want to make sure that whenever you're like scooping some of this out, you always want to do so with a dry utensil or dry thing. You never want to introduce water or moisture into your liver of sulfur. So let me grab, I'm just going to use the end of a nasty studio toothbrush. Stir this up a little bit because it's been sitting for a while. And then just this This is really all I need for the amount of water I have in here. There's not really an exact recipe for like how much liver of sulfur to how much water, but you don't need a lot. A little goes a long way, and you can always add more. So I would start with just a little bit, and then if you feel like it's not working quickly enough, you can add more. And I like to start with really hot water. I'm sitting here talking a lot, so my water's cooled off a little bit, but that's okay. And then you're just gonna dip your piece. See, did you see that color change? It happened pretty quick. If I had mixed this stronger or my water was hotter, it would have happened even faster. So I'm gonna leave that in for a second, and then we'll pull it out and rinse it, and we'll scrub it again with our brass brush. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna build this color up in a couple of layers so that it's really nice and like saturated into the surface of the metal. Let me grab my copper tongs really quick. All right, so it's sat in there for a few seconds. The longer you let it sit, the darker it will get, but it almost starts to get cakey, and the dark will like wipe right off the surface if you leave it in too long and just let it like cake on. So I would just leave it in for a few seconds and then pull it out, and we're gonna make sure that our brush is lubricated with a good layer of soap. If you don't lubricate the brass brush with soap, the brass bristles can actually transfer a brassy color onto your metal, which you don't want. So then I'm just gonna scrub this. Some people are really particular about going in a single direction. I tend to be more of like a swirly girl, so I kind of do this. And what we're doing is we're basically kind of embedding that patina into the surface, and we're gonna build it up slowly in layers. Okay, so I'm pretty dark, but I'm not as dark as I can be. So then we're gonna submerge it again and repeat this. And I almost always repeat at least twice. Sometimes I need to do more than that. Can you see that color change happening? It will change faster the hotter the water is, the more concentrated the solution is, and if you agitate the solution. So me just kind of swirling it like this is accelerating the chemical reaction. And we can also do silver this way, so we'll do that next. Showing copper first. Okay, that looks pretty good to me, so I'm gonna pull it out and rinse it. Anybody have any questions so far? Look at that beautiful black. And then we're gonna scrub it again. Okay, and then I'm gonna instantly dry it, because as I mentioned, leaving water to dry on the surface can cause reactions with your patina that are usually unwanted. Okay, so now I have this beautiful, dark, kind of gunmetal black. And now we probably want to accentuate the texture of this feather. So I'll do that a couple of different ways, depending on what I'm doing. I really like, I will also link these. These are, unless Brianna is still on and wants to, you can find these at Rio Grande. They're called 3M sanding sponges, and they come in a bigger piece, kind of like this size, maybe 4x6. I cut them up into small pieces. They come in different grits. I think this one is like super fine or ultra fine. I tend to like the ones that are a little bit coarser than this one. Like this one. This is fine. It's a little bit grainier. But on something really subtle like this, I will start with a more subtle sanding sponge to remove the highlights because I don't want to get too far down in the recesses. And then I'm just going to work this sponge on the surface. And you can see how it's starting to remove. I'm going to switch to the finer one. Oh, sorry guys. Bonked the camera. I'm not seeing comments come through, so I don't know if anybody just doesn't have questions yet. But, oh, okay. Brianna can't link. I forgot about that. I'll do a recap in Potter People in our Facebook group, and I'll just post links to some of the things we talked about, like the brass brush and the sanding sponges. I forgot we can't link in comments on Facebook Live or on YouTube Lives. So see how, and it takes a while to kind of remove, but see how I'm starting to make all the fine lines of that feather really visible. You can also just take sandpaper. Let me grab some sandpaper really quick. So this is probably a 400 grit sandpaper. And you can just hit that off the high points. It's really shiny. It's kind of the light. It's hard to see. But let's do another one that you can see a little better. So this piece, this is some Cranston Fancy Wire. I have already cleaned this. Obviously, it's got a deeper texture than that feather. And I should, you know, if I was doing this for real, I wouldn't want to dip sections like this. I would want to fully submerge the whole piece. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to do this section at the bottom so I don't have to mix a huge vat of liver of sulfur. Okay, so I've built up the first layer of color. Gonna scrub with the brass brush. And it removes some of the dark, but not all of it. And then I'm gonna resubmerge and build that layer up, that second layer up, so I can get really nice dark darks. Okay, and then rinse and repeat. Okay, and then I can come in with that sanding sponge. And just take it off the high spots, and look how beautiful that is. It really makes the pattern pop. And we have nice dark darks. And then also, I will show you how to seal this with a wax, but when you wax it, it will darken up even more. So that looks pretty good. Since the original question was about a pattern plate texture and liver of sulfur, we'll just do one more example here of patterned rolled copper. And I picked a really subtle pattern. This is like our tooled leather pattern, because I thought that would be a better example of what the original question was. Okay, so you can see how I've built up some black down at the bottom here. repeat. So a question just came up. I'm curious about complete removal of bad patina jobs. Is it possible with another process? So when I have a patina that I don't like, I will use my torch to gently heat the metal. I'm not heating it up to like annealing temperature or anything that hot. Just enough to kind of warm the metal and help, I guess, remove the patina. And then I'll pickle it and then start over. Okay, so where did I do with my sanding sponge? I lost it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so you can see the dark I have on here. So I'll get the majority of the surface with the sanding sponge, and then I'll go back in with the brass brush to kind of re-burnish the surface. And it looks like this. And then I'll take it one more step further to kind of give my surface like a shiny finish. And I'll show you how I do that. Lorraine, did that answer your question? All right, so I love these Pro Polish pads from Rio Grande. For patina removal, this is like my #1 favorite thing. After the sanding sponge, I will go in with one of these Pro Polish pads, and you can rub the surface with it, and it gives you like this really pretty, I don't know if you're going to be able to see the difference in my studio lighting, but it shines the surface up kind of like a, you know, like a rouge cloth or something. And it leaves the patina down in the recessed areas. I don't think my lighting's very good, but I'll post some pictures in Potter People as well of the various samples that we did in this live so that you can see them a little more close up. Okay, so that's copper with liver of sulfur. Now let's do silver with liver of sulfur. So I'll use this as an opportunity to show you how I mix the granular liver of sulfur. There are different opinions about this, and you can read the safety data sheets and decide, you know, what works best for you. I rinse liver of sulfur down the sink with cold water. So I'm gonna mix a fresh batch with hot water, so let me grab that. Okay, and while my water's heating up really quick, I'm gonna dry my hands off really well because when you're using this stuff, it is absolutely essential that you don't introduce any moisture into this canister. It will last a really long time if it stays dry and dark. So you want to make sure that you're using a tweezer that you have not gotten wet. These are nice and dry. And then we'll open the canister. This is what the granules look like. You don't need very much. For this little glass bowl that I have, this little nugget right here will probably be more than enough. It's not very large. So we'll grab that after I get my hot water. which it sounds like that's ready. So let me grab it real quick. And it doesn't need to be boiling. Normally I would let it cool for a second before I dumped it in here. Okay, so I've probably got about 3/4 of a cup of water in this dish. And I'm gonna put that nugget that I showed you a second ago and drop it in and just dissolve it in this bowl. Nope, if I can find that nugget. Okay, we're gonna do a different nugget because I lost the first one. A lot of these are really large. You can break them up with like a hammer, but obviously I'm not gonna do that right now. So we'll do that small one and we'll add one more tiny little chunk. And that should be good. So then we can mix this up. I'm just using my copper tongs to dissolve those little nuggets. And then I'm showing you liver of sulfur with silver, but I'm also going to show you something that I prefer over liver of sulfur for darkening silver, and that's Midas Black Max. We'll talk about this in a second. So liver of sulfur is not my first choice for silver, but I'm going to show you how to patina silver in this video, in case that's all you have. So here I have a piece of roller printed sterling silver. This is roller printed with like our, I think it's like called paint splatter or something, pattern plate. Okay, and I don't know if you could see that color change. It happened pretty quick. That's because my water's really nice and hot. I also just like how the granular liver of sulfur works better than the gel, but that's just my personal preference. If you live in a really humid environment, I would probably suggest opting for the gel because the granular will go bad on you a lot quicker than it does in a place like this. Okay, so first base layer is on. We're gonna do this the exact same way we did the copper. There is literally nothing different about the process. I just wanted to show you how to mix the gel and the granular. So there's my first layer of black. We're gonna resubmerge. Wait for that second layer to build up a little bit. Introduce some agitation. Then we'll pull it out and rinse it and do the same song and dance. Okay, I'm going to show you what this looks like before I start removing it off the surface. You get a really nice, like gunmetal, I don't even want to say gray because it's like darker than gray, but it's really nice. Another really nice product for blackening silver is called Gosiba, but it's like $80, so that is not something that I purchased for my personal studio. I did use it for the first time a couple months ago, and I absolutely loved it. It works really fast, and you get really, really nice black blacks. It's just really expensive, and I don't think the difference is worth it for me to purchase. Okay, so again, with the sanding sponge, I I love this pattern plate. It's really cool. I haven't made anything with it yet, but I really need to because I really like it. All right, and then with the brass brush, it looks like I'm needing a little more soap on my bristles here. Kind of burnish that surface back. And then we'll rinse it and take a look. Okay, there's a question. Have you used Oxwin? Yes, we always called it Winox. It felt really weird for me just now saying that backwards. I don't know if it's backwards or not. It's just the way I learned to say it. But that stuff is pretty caustic, and so I don't even know if it's worse than this, but I feel like it is. I feel like that stuff like smokes when you use it. I think it's a more caustic acid than the Black Max. But yes, it does work really well. When I was in school, that's what we used. Okay, and then same thing. I like to use the Pro Polish pads just to hit the surface and kind of give that surface like a surface buff. My lighting in my studio is not great, so it's kind of washing everything out. But when we go to wax this, we'll get some more contrast. Okay, so there's liver of sulfur on silver. I figured somebody was going to ask about brass, so we'll go ahead and do this. You can use liver of sulfur on brass. It's not going to give you as dark of a color as like the copper does. It just browns it a little bit, and it takes a lot longer. It doesn't work very well. So we'll leave that in here for a second, and then talk about a few other ways you can darken brass. Some people will use gun bluing for brass, which I have done. It works really well. It really likes it if the metal has a texture to it. So if you can sandblast the metal or rough it up with sandpaper, the gun blue really likes that. And gun bluing is a solution, oops, sorry guys. A solution you can buy at like a sports store or, you know, any place that sells guns, I think. That's not really my world, so I know that in the past, when I was a student, we would just go to Walmart and purchase it. I haven't been to a Walmart in like 15 years, so I would assume you can still get it there, but I'm not sure. Okay, so you can see how I'm having a reaction, but it's very subtle. It's not a lot. Personally, I would not waste my time with liver of sulfur and brass. There are commercial patinas you can buy for darkening brass, made by like Midas. I think Rio sells them. I have not really messed around with a lot of those. My favorite method for darkening brass, I don't know if you can even tell the difference. We got a lot of like yellowing over here, but not really what we're going for. So my favorite method of darkening brass is actually a fuming method. So I'll show that briefly. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because, you know, we're doing Patina Basics today and not getting too advanced here. But the idea with a fumed patina, Teresa, that's what I was mentioning. There's different schools of thought on liver of sulfur, but it is not an acid, so I do not neutralize it. I just run cold water down the sink for a couple of minutes. But please read the material safety data sheet and decide what you think is best for you. Okay, so fuming. What we're gonna do when we fume is basically create an atmosphere in an enclosed space. So in this Tupperware, again, please keep these separate from your food use items. I have a large Tupperware and a small dish. And in the small dish, I'm going to add a little bit of ammonia. I really like this janitorial strength from Ace Hardware. It works a lot faster than the household use ammonia, but the fumes from this are really nasty, so be careful. You don't want to be breathing the fumes. So we're going to put a little tiny bit of ammonia, just like 1/4 of an inch in the bottom of that dish, in an open container. And then we'll place our brass piece in this container. Normally I would put some chopsticks or something down to prop this up on. I'll just set it on top of that ammonia container. And then we're gonna close up this container and let the metal fume in that little chamber for a few hours. I'm gonna keep going along with my demo and we'll take a look at that whenever this demo ends. There probably won't be huge changes because we won't have very much time. But again, I will post photos in Potter People and update you guys. I also have a few examples. So you can also introduce other elements into the fuming chamber. So these these 3 pieces were all brushed with white vinegar before they were placed in the fuming chamber. So I brushed the surface with vinegar and then set it in the chamber just like I just did with that piece, and an open container of ammonia. And the vinegar reacts with the surface and it gives you this really beautiful blue on copper. So this one was done for 2 hours. This one was done for 1.5 hours. And this one was done for 4 hours. So you can see the longer you fume it, the darker it gets. This is also one of our texture plates that I really love. I think it's really pretty. And then, so these are just straight vinegar. These were vinegar, and then I sprinkled salt on the surface and then fumed. And with patinas, especially these types of patinas, there are so many factors that determine the coloring. You can't ever really expect to get like super predictable results. I mean, in general, you're gonna get blues and greens. This one was done for 4 hours. This one was done for 1.5 hours. This one's a lot bluer. This one's more green. But it could have just been the humidity level on the day that I did them or something that caused, you know, one to be more green than the other. So it's fun to experiment with these things, but don't get too dead set on like, I want my piece to look exactly like this, because you'll probably end up just being a little bit frustrated. Okay, so while we're letting that fume, our brass piece, we are going to blacken silver with this Midas Black Max. And you can tell I've had this lovely little jug here for a long time. It's seen better days, but I use it for a really long time. And I dump it back in after I'm done using it. Are you asking about, Lorraine, are you asking about those green samples that I just showed? All right, I'm drying this out so that I don't introduce water into my Black Max solution. The blue and green, yes. So those were samples I did for a patina class that I taught, and they have been scrubbed and cleaned and sealed with a wax, which I will show you the waxing in a couple minutes here. Okay, so I use this Black Max a couple of different ways. Sometimes I dip my whole piece in here and submerge it, and sometimes I brush it on. It doesn't matter. You can do it however it works best for you. So if I'm doing something like a chain, a sterling silver chain, I will just hold the chain with my tweezers and like dip the whole chain in. And then rinse. Okay, so you can see how it, this was the part that I didn't submerge, and this is all the area that I did. I got it nice and black. And then I love the Pro Polish pads for this because you can literally just take the chain and run the Pro Polish pad over the chain in between your fingers, and it hits all those high spots. Yeah, I was going to mention the watercolor pens too. I don't have any of those, but I see people doing that all the time and they look really nice. I'm just cheap and a paintbrush also works fine for me. So I haven't bought the watercolor pens, but they do look fun. So you can see how I have the black off the high spots, and it's just down in the recessed areas of the chain. It gives me a nice antiqued look, and all I did was dip it a couple of times. So now I'll show you brushing and submerging like a larger piece. And make sure you're taking precautions, you know, wear eye protection, wear gloves. This is a lot nastier than liver of sulfur. It is an acid. You do not want this coming into contact with your skin or your clothing or your eyeballs. Make sure you have good ventilation, all those things. Okay, so here's a piece that I rolled with our shibori pattern plate. And you can see how it just instantly darkens my silver. To black. It's just almost instantaneous. So I have nice black. And then I love these Pro Polish pads for just taking the black off the surface. Sorry the lighting in my studio isn't better. I am working from home today, so you get what you get. About, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes before I was starting this live, my son got home from school and he ran to get me and he said, "Mom, something bad happened in my bedroom." And I was like, oh no. So I go look, and a huge container of slime had gotten knocked over this morning, I guess, when he was getting ready for school, and he didn't notice, and it's like saturated into his carpet. And he showed me, and I was not having great feelings about that. And I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Nothing I can do about that now. We're going to have to deal with it later. And I cannot wait to go deal with that later this afternoon. All right, so see that lovely black down in all those recessed areas and that nice shine I have on the surface? I love Black Max. It's my fave. All right, and then you can also just brush it on. So just those watercolor brushes, I know a lot of people use those and love them. They're little like refillable watercolor brush pens that you can just buy on Amazon. And you can put the patina down into like the pen receptacle, and then it just comes out the brush automatically. Okay, so look what happens when you don't clean your metal well. there was some oil residue on this metal. I didn't scrub this before I started. And look at how that patina is going on. Yuck. That's a great example of why it's important to clean your metal. All right, so let's rinse this. Pat, which pattern are you talking about that you love? The one I'm doing now or the shibori one? All right, and before I continue doing anything else, since I'm done with the patina, I'm going to dump it back in this container. If I can find my funnel. And then this I do neutralize. So I will do that before I rinse those out. But let's look at this right now. So I would just dump a little bit of baking soda in there and then wash everything down the sink. All right, so again with the Pro Polish pad. This is one of our Art Deco patterns. It's one of our newer ones. It's really pretty. On silver, the light reflects just really nicely. And I don't think I mentioned this. I'm sure you guys probably have heard by now, but we are having a Black Friday sale, and all of our pattern plates, which are normally very affordable, are currently 25% off, which is amazing. So I would run and snag a few if I were you. It's a great time to get them. Yeah, I haven't heard the latest on the rolled silver with Kevin, Pat. You'll have to ask him. I don't know. He might have moved on. Not sure. I know that was something that he talked about, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen. So this one is really pretty too. And like I said, I'll post pictures of all this stuff later. All right, so let's take a look at our fuming chamber, because I think I'm about finished with what I wanted to show you guys, unless you have any questions. Okay, someone's asking, I've heard black max turn sort of brown on silver before. Oh, I've had black max turn sort of brown on silver before. Any idea what causes that? That is not something that's happened to me. I would guess that it's something in what you're handling it with. So if your tweezers have are contaminating the process, you know, if there's some sort of other chemical in your tweezers or something, or maybe your silver wasn't fully clean, or maybe your solution was old. I'm not sure. That's not something that's happened to me. But also, Rio Grande has a good tech team. You can always call Rio and ask their tech team members technical questions if you have them. All right. Ugh. Okay, so here's our little fume chamber. It's probably only been about 5 minutes, which is really not long enough to have done anything. But it looks like it's done a little bit. So I'm not kidding when I say the fumes from this are really bad. Generally, when I do this, I do it outside. It's not really an option for me when I'm doing this live right now, so I'm gonna open it kind of quickly and try to sneak in there. These ammonia fumes will kind of come out all at once, and they will literally burn your eyeballs. You can use household ammonia. But it has other chemicals in the household ammonia, you know, like the lemon scented stuff and whatever. And it works a lot slower. It's more diluted than this industrial stuff. So I don't know if you can tell, but the whole thing darkened a bit. Let's take a Pro Polish pad just so you can kind of see the difference. But this whole piece will turn completely black, like jet black, if you let it fume long enough. It'll start off kind of brownish, and then it will go to black. And yes, someone's asking about the Midas brown black. There's lots of different Midas patinas that you can try. They are just not something I've ever really gotten into. So I can't answer specific questions about the Midas patinas. All right, so definitely we've got a little bit more contrast between our pattern and our surface. And if we had time to fume this longer, which I'll do off camera and post a picture later, then we would have built even more contrast between the recessed areas and the surface. So that is what I wanted to show you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. I have a couple of samples here I'll show you before we sign off. But that's about it for this demo. I'm showing, these are some of our keychain pancake dies that I've used rolling mill pattern plates with, and they're a good example of this patina situation that I just showed you. This one is called like ornate French design or something like that. It's one of our older pattern plates, but I really like it. This is our fern pattern plate. I like these keychains. I think they're fun. Actually, Pat, I think it was you that was asking about forming them and getting them closed down. So like this one I riveted because it wasn't coming together as nicely as I wanted. But these other ones are just open. And they shut down okay. I'm not really worried about riveting them closed. This is one of my favorite pattern plates. I love this one. This is the one that I used on the earrings that were on the graphic advertising this Facebook Live, or this YouTube Live. These patinas also look great on like our dish formers. This is one of our dish former pancake die silhouette die set pieces, and this texture is aluminum foil that's crumpled up and then rolled through the rolling mill. There's a video making that dish on our YouTube channel. All right, that's it, guys. That's all I've got for you today. I will be posting some photos in Potter People, and I will see you later. Oh, wait, there's a question. Thank you, Lynette. Do you use something other than Renaissance? Oh, I forgot to seal. Okay, let's do that really quick. I almost forgot. I just took off my gloves, so pretend my gloves are still on. So I use Renaissance wax for silver, and I use Johnson's paste wax for copper and brass. The reason I use this for silver is because it does not yellow. It's our archival microcrystalline wax. This stuff is yellow, and it does yellow, which to me doesn't really matter on a warm colored metal like copper or brass. Unfortunately, this is no longer being made, and I don't really know what an alternative is. I'm sure there are other like paste waxes out there. Someone had mentioned turtle wax, but I just haven't tried it, so I'm not really for sure on that. But the waxing process is really simple. I usually use just an old t-shirt, like rag, and just charge the rag with a little bit of wax. And then rub a thin layer on. And I know it's hard to tell, but it darkens the color of the patina when you apply the wax. So it helps you get even more contrast. And then I just leave the wax on for a second, and then I buff it off also with a t-shirt rag. And I'll usually do that process twice just to kind of build up a good coat. But then once you've waxed it, the patina won't continue to change as much. It's more stable. Okay. Sorry, I almost forgot to show the waxing. So I think that's it for today, and I will see y'all later. Bye guys, thank you.